Imagine waking up tomorrow to find out that a team of young software engineers, some as young as 19 with zero government experience, now have complete access to your social security number, your medical records, your mental health history, and even your family court documents. Well, that just became reality for millions of Americans after a bombshell Supreme Court decision yesterday. The highest court in the land just handed the Department of Government Efficiency, yeah, that's DOGE, like the meme coin, unprecedented access to the most sensitive personal data of millions of Americans. And the story behind this decision is wilder than you might think. So, what exactly is DOGE? Picture this, it's January 2025. Donald Trump just got inaugurated for his second term, and on day one, he signs an executive order creating this new government entity. The mission? Cut $2 trillion in government spending. The leader? None other than Elon Musk himself. Trump literally put the world's richest man in charge of finding ways to slash the federal budget. Now here's where things get interesting. DOGE isn't actually a real government department. It's more like a special task force filled with what insiders call DOGE kids. These are mostly software engineers between 19 and 24 years old, many straight out of college, who Musk personally recruited. By March, there were about 100 of them, and Musk was planning to double that number. They swept through federal agencies like a tornado, shutting down programs, firing thousands of workers, and accessing sensitive government databases. But yesterday's Supreme Court ruling takes their power to a whole new level. In a 6-3 decision that split along ideological lines, the conservative majority basically said, DOGE can access Social Security Administration data containing some of the most intimate details of Americans' lives. We're talking birth dates, driver's license numbers, bank account information, credit card data, mental health treatment records, and even school records of children. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson didn't hold back in her dissent. She wrote that this creates, and I quote, grave privacy risks for millions of Americans. She basically accused the majority of rushing in like emergency responders to fan the flames rather than put out the fire. Justice Sotomayor joined her, warning that millions of Americans just had their privacy stripped away without proper legal safeguards. Now the White House and DOGE claim they need this access to root out fraud and modernize outdated systems. They say any American receiving Social Security benefits will continue to receive them. But here's where the story takes another twist. Their fraud claims might be completely bogus. Get this. Musk claimed that 20 million people over age 100 are receiving Social Security benefits. He called it the biggest fraud in history. The problem? That claim is based on a complete misunderstanding of how the database works. The actual fraud rate in Social Security direct deposits? About 0.00625%. That's basically nothing compared to the $1.6 trillion distributed annually. One federal judge, Ellen Hollander, who initially tried to block DOGE's access before the Supreme Court overruled her, put it perfectly. She said DOGE is essentially engaged in a fishing expedition at SSA in search of a fraud epidemic based on little more than suspicion. Two other judges have already rebuked the Trump administration for making fraud allegations without any evidence. But wait, it gets even more dramatic. Just last week, this whole DOGE operation started falling apart at the seams. Musk and Trump got into a massive public feud over government spending. Trump threatened to cut off Musk's companies from federal contracts. Musk called a congressional spending bill a disgusting abomination and basically rage quit his government job. A former DOGE staffer named Sahil Lavinia, who got fired after talking to the media, predicted the whole thing would die a whimper without Musk. He said DOGE staffers would probably just stop showing up to work, comparing it to kids joining a startup that's about to go out of business in 4 months. So far, DOGE claims to have saved about $175 to $180 billion, which sounds like a lot until you remember they promised to cut $2 trillion. Their public tallies have been riddled with errors, including negative values for some grants and completely misunderstood data. Some of their claimed savings are actually $0. They're just counting subscriptions they're not renewing. What makes this Supreme Court decision especially concerning is the speed and secrecy of DOGE's operations. multiple lawsuits have been filed trying to get basic transparency about what they're doing. When a watchdog group tried to get documents through the Freedom of Information Act, DOGE refused, claiming they're not really a government agency, so they don't have to comply. The Supreme Court sided with them on that too, blocking most document requests. Democrats and unions are fighting back hard. They've protested outside affected agencies, tried to issue congressional subpoenas for Musk, and filed over 24 lawsuits. But with the Supreme Court's conservative majority backing DOGE, those efforts face an uphill battle. The real question now is, what happens next? With Musk gone and Trump publicly feuding with him, DOGE's future looks uncertain. The initiative is supposed to run until July 4th, 2026, but without its billionaire champion, it might fizzle out much sooner. Right now, cabinet secretaries are supposedly in charge, but there's effectively no clear leadership. Meanwhile, millions of Americans just had their most sensitive personal information opened up to a team of inexperienced 20-somethings on a mission to find fraud that probably doesn't exist. Your medical records, your financial data, your children's school information, it's all fair game now. The Privacy Act is supposed to protect this information, saying only employees who actually need it for their jobs should have access. But the Supreme Court just decided that DOGE's vague mission to modernize systems and find waste and fraud is enough to override those protections. This isn't just about privacy, it's about trust in government and who gets to access our most personal information. When young software engineers with no government experience and no proper vetting get unlimited access to databases containing intimate details about millions of vulnerable Americans, including retirees worried about their benefits, we should all be asking, is this really making government more efficient, or is it just making it more invasive? What do you think? Are you comfortable with DOGE having access to your personal data in the name of efficiency? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.